All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from RicoScores, and through John Com, we now have the first Washington Commanders depth chart going into week 1 of the regular season. This upcoming matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on September 8th at 4:25 p.m. I will be live streaming that entire game, but we got to break down this depth chart. Of course, that's what we're here for. First of all, Luke McCaffrey is starting along with 3 other rookies starting on both offense and defense. We got to do a deep dive because we even have a couple of position changes that have officially been made, and we have a few more surprises even outside of those. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content, man. Really appreciate y'all for pulling up. Even though I'm not at my home base where I can do all of the editing, I could have the dogs at the bottom left and everything like that. Y'all are still pulling up, supporting, leaving likes, leaving comments, engaging in everything. I really appreciate y'all. When I get back, it is hitting the ground running. It's back to daily videos, even some days more than one video in a day. It's going to be live streams for every single game and maybe even some midweek live streams as well. So make sure y'all stay tuned. I'm really excited. Can't wait for this season. I feel like people are definitely underrating us right now, but stay tuned. And without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this video, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so as you can see right now, starting with quarterback, obviously, Jaden Daniels, then Marcus Mariota, Jeff Driscoll. There's really not much time to really spend on that other than the fact that it's still interesting that, maybe Jeff Driscoll made the team over Sam Hartman, but especially with Sam Hartman being the least experienced out of anybody that made this roster, even including Jaden Daniels, who's been getting starting reps since some early on in training camp, basically like midway early on training camp. Sam Hartman, even including Jaden Daniels, has the least experience on this team because not only is he an undrafted free agent who wasn't getting the same amount of reps as Jaden Daniels, he also got hurt. And he was hurt for like a week and a half, even missed the last 2 preseason games and things like that. So he barely even got the fair share that he was supposed to get in the first one because that's when he got hurt. So he missed practices, he missed preseason games and things like that. So it was no surprise that not only he didn't make the team, but also he cleared waivers and we were able to claim him because he was an undrafted free agent. If people really liked him that much, if other teams wanted him that bad, they would have drafted him. He's a quarterback. It's different from other positions where you can kind of see, well, maybe this is a guy we can bring in as an undrafted free agent because, he can contribute on special teams for now, but we got to wait and see as far as like his particular position goes. No, quarterback, either you can play or you just can't, honestly. Of course, there's some potential there. You just never know if you can grow into somebody, but quarterbacks, typically, if just because of positional value, if a team likes them enough, they'll just end up drafting them in the 7th round. You saw how the 49ers did Brock Purdy and how that turned out. I believe that if he was an undrafted free agent in the first place, he could clear waivers and end up making it back to the practice squad, and that ended up being the truth. But again, Jaden Daniels is clearly a starting quarterback. It's kind of felt like he was that since mandatory minicamps when we gave him all of the starting reps then. Then we got the training camp and we kind of opened it back up where he and Marcus Mariota were going back and forth with starting reps. And at a certain point, Jaden Daniels just completely took over all of the starting reps. Then he was named the starter. Then Marcus Mariota also got hurt. I think Sam Hartman was a shoulder injury, but Marcus Mariota was a groin injury. And it's pretty much no looking back now. We even deboed Marcus Mariota's 0 to give it to Mike Sanderstill, who was sharing the number 2 with De'Ami Brown. And then Marcus Mariota wore number 8 in college, but that's Brian Robinson's number right now. So they just gave him 18. They just gave him any old number 18, and he's just going to sit there as the backup quarterback. Jeff Driscoll, clearly the third guy. I think if anything, it wouldn't be Sam Hartman making the team over Jeff Driscoll. It would just be the only reason Jeff Driscoll didn't make the 53-man roster is because you only wanted to keep 2 quarterbacks. But they decided to keep 3, and we'll see how that goes. So that's the quarterback position. Now, next up, we can go ahead and go to the running backs. Interesting that Brian Robinson is your starting running back. Only reason it's not surprising is because we've been talking about this for the past couple of weeks now. If you've been keeping up with my training camp updates, Brian Robinson has been the starter. Austin Ekeler will more than likely play the most on third downs, even though do not sleep on Brian Robinson in the passing game and the receiving game. He has softer hands than you think. He can make plays, explosive plays out in the open field. You saw examples of that last year with those explosive plays he had in the receiving game with Eric Bieniemy as his defensive coordinator. Imagine what he's going to do with Cliff Kingsbury as the OC and Jaden Daniels as his quarterback, how phenomenal he can be in the passing game there. So do not sleep on him. Don't act like Brian Robinson is just an in-between the tackles running back only. Austin Ekeler is only a third down receiving back, and that's it. So Brian Robinson, clearly first and second down, he's on the field, but sometimes he'll be out there on third downs. Austin Ekeler, same thing. He'll more than likely be out there on third downs over Brian Robinson. Also, just because of his pass protection as well. Brian Robinson is a bigger, stronger guy, but technique-wise, Austin Ekeler is still the better pass protector right now. I remember, like, early on in training camp, there was a play where Jaden Daniels threw a deep bomb to Terry McLaurin, and that play only happened because Austin Ekeler did an excellent job of picking up a Bobby Wagner blitz. And so it's just little things like that's why they probably prefer Austin Ekeler on the field on third downs. But also, he's the more experienced running back. He's more specifically the more experienced receiving back between the two, between him and Brian Robinson as well. So you're going to see Austin Ekeler more so on third downs. You're going to see Brian Robinson more so on first and seconds. But don't be surprised if you see Brian Robinson on thirds and Austin Ekeler on first and seconds as well, because Austin Ekeler slept on in between the tackles as well. And he looks explosive. He's never been like the fastest guy. He's not a guy that's going to take it 80 yards to the house, but that line of scrimmage to 20 yards, he's pretty explosive, man. He can make some jump cuts and make some people miss in between the tackles, so do not sleep on either of these two guys. And when they're doing anything outside of their dominant roles that we know them for the most. And then Jeremy McNichols making a team over, we already talked about this, over Michael Wiley. You know, it makes sense. I thought Michael Wiley, in my personal opinion, had the better offseason entirely, but he is an undrafted free agent, and you could assume that, again, being an undrafted free agent, that maybe you can slide him onto the practice squad and he'll clear waivers, which he did. So he's right around the corner if we ever need him. But Jeremy McNichols, the more experienced guy that's been in the NFL for a few years now, and again, Michael Wiley is an undrafted free agent rookie. And Jeremy McNichols, even though from my tape that I've watched, he hasn't necessarily looked good for other teams, but for some reason this offseason it seemed like some type of switch clicked on, and Jeremy McNichols actually looks like a pretty decent third running back to have in your group. So I'm pretty excited about that group, man. But I just really think Brian Robinson is very underrated receiving wise, and Austin Ekeler is underrated like in between the tackle wise. So I'm really excited about that running back duo. The way they worded it is basically like a two-headed monster. It's not a 1-2 punch where one guy is dominant over the other as far as snaps go, because I wouldn't be surprised by the end of the game Austin Ekeler and Brian Robinson have played a very close amount of snaps, but Brian Robinson will be the guy usually out there on first and 10. Austin Ekeler will usually be out there on third downs. We'll see how they mix it up for the second down and things like that. Now moving on to the wide receivers. Very interesting because Luke McCaffrey is starting over Dyami Brown, who since the beginning of training camp has been known as wide receiver 2, I would say. So it's really not even the fact that Luke McCaffrey is technically the starter according to this depth chart, even though they just could be flat out lying to our faces, because I remember like a week or two ago them saying that they hope that Luke McCaffrey will be further ahead in his development than he actually is. So not to say that he's disappointing them, but they were just expecting more of him up to this point late August than where he was. So even just beyond that, the fact that Dyami Brown, no matter who you would have put above him, just the fact that Dyami Brown isn't one of the starting 3 wide receivers you see on the screen right now is pretty shocking to me. I thought it would be Terry McLaurin, Dyami Brown as your 2 starters, and then we figure out who the third is after that. So even more so than Luke McCaffrey being one of the starters, I'm way more shocked that Dyami Brown isn't one of them. Now, granted, it's not like he's just this, because his best ability is his deep ball ability. He's also a great blocker, arguably the best blocking wide receiver on this team. That's going to be huge. That's why he's going to play a lot. I don't care where he is on this depth chart. The fact that he can block really well is going to get him a lot of playing time, because this is going to be a heavily running team. Even outside of just the running backs, wide receiver screens, or how about a quarterback in Jaden Daniels who can run really well. So Dyami Brown is going to be on that field a lot, but I can admit, if you're talking about his other superpower, his deep ball ability, he doesn't separate much there. We just don't really see him. Even that deep bomb that he caught from Jaden Daniels, he didn't have much separation there. That was just a perfect pass from Jaden Daniels. But Dyami Brown is still a solid receiver. Is your receiver group that great if Dyami Brown is your wide receiver 2? we'll have to see. We'll see when we go against the Buccaneers, because again, I know it says Luke McCaffrey's above him on the depth chart, but I'm not exactly sure. That's a confusing one to me. I don't know if I believe that just yet already. Just based on what I was hearing just a couple of weeks ago, unless Luke McCaffrey just got way better in these past couple of weeks, that is very confusing. Then Olamide Zaccheaus is, I guess, one of your other starting wide receivers. Not really surprised there, even though Noah Brown, when he catches up to the offense, remember we signed Noah Brown, ex-Texans, ex-Dallas Cowboys receiver. When we signed him, talent-wise, he's your wide receiver too. Just based off of just production the past couple of years, talent-wise, he's your wide receiver too. But maybe week one, they're not necessarily considering him wide receiver two. And when I say wide receiver two, I'm talking about Terry McLaurin's obviously wide receiver one, and then who's after that? Noah Brown, I guess, is behind Olamide and Luke McCaffrey, and probably even De'Ami Brown and Jamison Crowder, just because he's not caught up on the offense yet. I do remember seeing some Commanders reporters that went to the practices the past couple of days say that Noah Brown and Jaden Daniels stayed after practice, well after practice was over and people are already going home to their families. Jaden Daniels and Noah Brown were sitting down and really working through things, working on routes and things like that to try to catch him up and expedite that process as quickly as possible so that he could be ready to contribute as soon as possible for this team, because we need him, man. Even without Noah Brown, it's not like the worst receiving core in general, but we needed a guy like Noah Brown, even for anything else, just the size. He's already our tallest receiver on the team. Is the day that we signed him, so I'm happy about that. A guy that can go up there and provide you some jump ball ability, while all of the other receivers we have on roster are explosive, quick guys that can get open underneath and things like that, or maybe even open down the field. Noah Brown could give you some of what Martavis Bryant showed in that third preseason game against the Patriots, where he just completely boxed out the DB, no separation at all, just went up and grabbed the rebound, essentially. And so Noah Brown could contribute that. But again, I think ultimately, by maybe even as soon as week 2, but definitely by week 3 or week 4, Noah Brown is your wide receiver too. He's one of your starting receivers. I think it's Terry McLaurin, Noah Brown. I would argue maybe it's even De'Ami Brown as the third, or maybe it's Luke McCaffrey if he's really that good already. I think those are your top 3-4 receivers. Olamide Zaccheaus is pretty solid. We'll see. Apparently he's way better for us than what he was for the Eagles last year, because he was not good for the Eagles, but he's been having a good training camp and a good offseason in general. We'll see. And then Jamison Crowder, of course, is on the team because he's just starting punt returner. Byron Pringle's on the team. You can see him at the top because he's just starting kick returner. They're here for special teams more so than anything else. They can contribute as receivers if you need them to, but Jamison Crowder and Byron Pringle are here as returners. Jamison Crowder, again, punts. Byron Pringle kickoffs. That's just about it for that. Then tight end wise, Zach Ertz, John Bates, Ben Sinnott. Simple as that. And I'm not surprised that Ben Sinnott is third on the depth chart, because Zach Ertz is your best pass catching tight end right now easily. John Bates is your best blocking one easily. Even though Zach Ertz can block some, and John Bates can catch some passes if he's open. We saw that in the preseason game against, I think it was the Dolphins, that Jaden Daniels had that nice throw to him. And then Ben Sinnott, the thing about him is that he can probably provide you the best of both worlds eventually. I think he can end up becoming as good of a pass catcher as Zach Ertz. He can end up becoming at least close to as decent of a blocker as John Bates. And I think ultimately Ben Sinnott, it may not even be as soon as this season. Maybe it takes a year or two, or maybe it happens at some point mid this season, his rookie season. But he ultimately could and should be the best tight end on this roster, just because Zach Ertz is only getting older. I'm not saying this is Zach Ertz in his prime, but Zach Ertz at this current age, John Bates he's a great blocker, arguably the best blocking tight end in the NFL, essentially like a third tackle. But he can catch an open pass, but you don't expect him to get open. Then sitting on top of the fact that he has the blocking potential of a John Bates, the receiving potential of a Zach Ertz, and he's extremely versatile. If you go look at his college tape, he plays fullback. He's literally like a Chris Cooley out there, but more athletic, faster, stronger, more explosive, all of that type of stuff. He even sometimes, if they do a formation with the quarterback and it's 2 running backs next to him, 21 personnel, he's one of those running backs to the side of the quarterback. Out wide as a wide receiver, like an X receiver, in the slot like a Mike Gesicki or Kyle Pitts, man. He's so versatile that his ceiling definitely surpasses current Zach Ertz at the age he is now, and of course John Bates ever. passing game wise especially. So I'm really excited about Ben Sinnott. He's third right now, but don't think that that's who he is for the remainder of his career. This is just day one, week one of year one of Ben Sinnott. Watch later on down the line. I think he has Pro Bowl potential. I think he can have a similar impact to Sam Laporta. The only thing is he has Zach Ertz and John Bates above him on the depth chart. But if we didn't have Zach Ertz and John Bates, I think if they were forced to throw Ben Sinnott out there, he could be as good as like a Sam Laporta year one. But, we'll see. Now, offensive line-wise, no real surprises here. You have Brandon Coleman, a rookie, as your starting left tackle. The only surprise there is that he hasn't played a practice in so long. He didn't play in any of the preseason games, neither of the three. And he's a third-round rookie that was considered, relatively raw, according to some people, even though he has a lot of experience at tackle. It's just that he played more so at guard in 2023. But in 2022, he was a full-time left tackle. So it's not like he's just that raw, but he is still a rookie. He's a third-round rookie, so it's not like you're expecting this guy to come out there and start day one immediately, especially with the limited practice time that he has. Because not only did he miss every preseason game, he didn't play a single snap in the preseason at all, which is just crazy for a rookie in general. No matter which position you play, to go out there and be ready to start for week one, you missed the entire preseason. But he also missed a few weeks of practice because of it as well. With the injury that he sustained, I think it was a pec injury, something like that. He missed weeks of practice, all the entire preseason. So I'm shocked to see that he is still the starting left tackle. Ideally, that's what you hope. Maybe his injury isn't that bad. Maybe they're seeing something in practice to where, well, he didn't need the preseason. He didn't need those weeks of training camp practice. He's still good to go. He's better than anything else we have at tackle right now, which hopefully is a good sign. But hey, I'm really happy to see that he is our starting left tackle, and those injuries and him missing that much time is not holding him back, and we're not forced to start a Cornelius Lucas or Trent Scott because of it. So Brandon Coleman's your starting left tackle. Nick Allegretti is obviously your starting left guard. Center Tyler Biadasz, we signed him here to be our starting center. Obviously, that's your guy there. Samuel Cosmi, I think he's destined for an all-pro year this year, at minimum Pro Bowl. So I'm looking at the Commanders like, man, y'all may want to go ahead and sign him long-term now, because that price is only going to increase drastically by the end of this season, because I think he's going to outplay whatever contract you can sign him to today. I think he'll outplay that by the end of this season. So I'm still confused as to why we haven't wrapped up Samuel Cosmi long-term. Yeah, I know it's a new regime. I know they're taking their time with things. Everybody needs to prove themselves. But I'm warning you now, literally October to the end of the season, Samuel Cosmi was easily the best player on this entire team last year. I'm telling y'all may want to wrap that one up early. And then starting right tackles, Andrew Wiley. He's missed some time as well, but he came back more recently. Brandon Coleman, I still haven't heard about him doing team drill things yet, but at least Andrew Wiley's been back for the past couple of weeks. He just didn't play in that Patriots game because we didn't play any starters, but if he had to, he would have played. Brandon Coleman may even be in a situation where it's like, if we had like a really important game tomorrow, like a playoff game or Super Bowl game, he probably could have played, but I think they're just being extra precautionary. Then, of course, Cornelius Lucas is your swing left tackle, so if there's an injury to Brandon Coleman or Andrew Wiley, he's next up in line, but sadly, Trent Scott is right behind him, and I do not trust Trent Scott at all. I do not like Trent Scott as a blocker at all. From what I've seen, I saw flashes last year as to why I saw some people like him, but what I've seen this offseason, the way he was getting whooped by any and everybody in that Jets joint practice, how he was getting whooped by Chop Robinson, freakish athlete, unlimited potential at edge rusher, but he's still very raw. The reason he didn't go automatically top 10 in the draft, it wasn't a lack of talent. It was because of a lack of a pass rush move set, lack of counters, lack of nuance and things like that, and that lack of hand technique and things like that. And he still whooped Trent Scott within 1.5 seconds of the snap in that preseason game we had against the Dolphins. So Trent Scott, if you're allowing that to a rookie, like I said in another video, man, if Trent Scott ever has to go out there and play at left tackle for us in a regular season game, at that point, just go ahead and pull Jaden Daniels. Just go ahead and throw Marcus Mariota and Jeff Driscoll out there. I'm not putting Jaden Daniels at risk like that. I don't trust Trent Scott, me personally. I'm sorry. So, but those are your backup tackles. Then your backup interior offensive linemen are just simply Chris Paul, who can play either guard spot, even though he played some right tackle for you this preseason and did pretty decent at that. Honestly, I prefer Chris Paul at right tackle than Trent Scott. I was hoping Braden Daniels made the team over Trent Scott, but that's just me. And then Michael Dieter is your backup center, even though I am surprised by the fact that he did not look as good this offseason as I expected. Like, based off of what I've seen on tape from him in regular seasons with other teams like the Texans and things like that, I expected him to be a really good backup center, and a guy that you could argue should probably be a starting center on someone else's roster. But this offseason, man, he did not look good. He did not look like he should be starting for anybody on this roster, man. And then on any team in the NFL, man, he looks like a certified backup center this offseason. I don't know what happened with him. I don't know why it seems like he took a step back. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully he never has to play. Hopefully Tyler Biadasz starts the entire season for us and we never have to worry about it. But just something to keep in mind. Now the starting defensive line, Dorrance Armstrong, Cleveland Farrell, Daron Payne, Jonathan Allen. Very obvious. Those are your starting defensive linemen. We knew that since months ago. Like, that was just very clear, obvious. And then they played like it. Dorrance Armstrong, I was hearing throughout the offseason, especially in some practices, and even I think the joint practice against the Dolphins, dominant was the word I heard used about him. So this is a guy that we were projecting like, okay, he was a backup for the Cowboys. He played backup level snaps. But if you project his stats onto like a starting level basis, basically if you double his snaps, which means you double his production, his stats, his sacks and everything like that, he's a double-digit sack guy projection wise. Based on what I've heard this offseason, the little I've seen of him, it looks like he may actually live up to being a double-digit sack guy, which we haven't had in a very long time. An explosive guy. That's going to be huge for this defense, man, because I love our linebacker group. I trust our DB group probably more than most people, especially because I love our safeties. I love our safeties. I love our linebackers. I love our interior defensive linemen. But we don't have like a Micah Parsons. We don't have a Brian Burns. We don't have like a game changer at edge rusher, at least until I started to see some flashes from Dorrance Armstrong to where maybe he is that guy, and we got him for potentially very cheap there. Now the backups. Phidarian Mathis made the team, and I'm not going to lie. You would have asked me months ago if Phidarian Mathis would have made the team. I would have assumed no. I would have been like, there's no way. But this guy actually just got better. Something clicked. I remember just a month ago in a training camp practice, Brian Robinson had a big touchdown run up the middle for like 40, 60 yards or something like that. And it was clearly Phidarian Mathis's fault, to the point that Daryl Scott, our defensive lines coach, pulled him to the side and chewed him out, cussed him out, yelling at him and everything like that. And I was like, well, that looks like that's about it for him. That's a wrap for him making his team. And then it was like a few days after that, Dan Quinn, even while everybody's doing team drills, he pulled Phidarian Mathis to the side to coach him up one-on-one. Like, they were seriously invested on this guy getting better, clearly. And apparently he answered the call. He lived up to it. The preseason game that he had, those last two games, especially the Dolphins and the Patriots, he looked really good. Now, I would argue that maybe John Ridgeway looked better, of course. I think John Ridgeway did look better, but you can get more in a trade for John Ridgeway than you could for Phidarian Mathis. People aren't going to give you essentially like what may end up being just a 6th round pick for John Ridgeway from what he did all regular season and what he did in the preseason. For Phidarian Mathis, for what he only did in 2 preseason games, didn't show you any of that the previous regular season. We weren't going to get anything in trade for that. So ideally, that's like best case scenario. You trade John Ridgeway for a 6th round pick essentially, and if Phidarian Mathis ends up developing into a guy that's just as good as John Ridgeway, and now you basically maximize the value of your situation. So shouts out to Phidarian Mathis. See, I actually trust him going into the season. I'm surprised because these last couple of seasons, it was looking like, why is he still on the team? But he actually looked really good these last 2 preseason games, man. Like, really good. So I'm excited. Then Johnny Newton, man. Once he gets back healthy, I'm telling you, he's Pro Bowl written all over him, but it's just a matter of him getting back healthy. We'll see. Last thing I heard about him is that he was dealing with a soft tissue injury issue outside of the 2-foot injuries that he was already recovering from, which is why he's missed the entire offseason. Apparently, there's like a third thing. We'll see how that's going there. But when he gets back healthy, that guy is going to be dominant. That's going to be a guy that deserves a level of snaps that's like similar to Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen, to where it's like a healthy 3-man rotation, to where you could argue that Johnny Newton is kind of one of the starters out there. I think he's that good. The Javonte Jean-Baptiste making the team over KJ Henry surprised me. Only just because I felt like KJ Henry was definitely the better player right now, for sure. But then again, he has a year on him, and at the same time, Javonte Jean-Baptiste was drafted by this regime in the 7th round. KJ Henry was a 5th round pick from the Rivera era. So maybe it's just that simple. They kept Javonte Jean-Baptiste because they drafted him. They did not draft KJ Henry. But today, KJ Henry is easily, in my opinion, the better edge rusher. I mean, especially with the versatility that he has. I mean, he can play edge rusher. He was playing 3-tech defensive tackle in the preseason games and drawing holding penalties from there as well. This is a very versatile piece. I'm surprised they just let him walk. They didn't even trade him. They just cut him. And I think the Bengals ended up getting him. I was pretty sad about that one, I'm not going to lie. Now, also, you see your boy Jamin Davis making that roster. Even though Like when it comes to outside linebacker and defensive end, I don't know if Dan Quinn has something special in store for Dante Fowler, because I think Dante Fowler is primarily just an edge rusher. I don't really see Dante Fowler going out there and going in coverage. I mean, Dominique Hampton was a free safety in college. Dante Fowler is an edge rusher, and they're right now on the same line as the same position with two completely different play styles and roles on this team. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't exactly know why they broke it down like that. Dante Fowler is an edge rusher. I consider him more a defensive end. But he is small, but I mean, he's a situational pass rusher. If it's 3rd and long, just send Dante Fowler at the quarterback. I believe in him to get a sack better than anybody else probably on this defensive line. I think Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler, especially edge rusher wise, give you the best chance at getting after the quarterback on 3rd down. So I love Clelin Ferrell as a run stopper on 1st and 2nd down, on obvious rushing downs and things like that, like 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 to set the edge, because Dante Fowler is not a good edge setter, even though I heard some rumblings about him setting the edge pretty well this offseason, but I'm not expecting that to be a consistent thing. But on 3rd and long, your edge rushers are Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler. And you maybe even, when Johnny Newton is healthy, maybe you even squeeze him in there as a 5th defensive lineman to go after the quarterback, because he excels at that as well. So I'm really excited. But also, don't forget Jamin Davis made this team. And I feel like it's for multiple reasons. First of all, I think he showed you enough flash as an edge rusher, even though he doesn't have any bend to his game. That's his biggest weakness right now. That's his biggest issue. Jamin Davis does not have bend. So when he's trying to come around that edge, tackles just kind of push him away from the quarterback. But that little trying to go on the outside and then, uses agility and athleticism to kind of rush back into the inside to get that strip sack in that preseason game showed you some flash that, okay, maybe we have something going here. But even before that play, the play right before that, he did an excellent job of following the quarterback that was rolling out of the pocket, having the athleticism to keep up with them, and then having the timing and athleticism to when the quarterback tried to throw the ball, he jumped up and batted it down. That was the play before the strip sack, and I feel like that play was not talked about enough. So Jamin Davis showed enough in those preseason games that hey man, this guy should make the team. Because I feel like for the second reason, even outside of just the first reason of him actually showing some potential at edge rusher, man, we have injuries to the linebacker group. Our guy, Jordan McGee, 5th round rookie, I was expecting him to not only be good, but to play a lot of snaps. I thought it was going to be Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu, and then right behind them, Jordan McGee as far as snaps goes. But he's hurt. And they did it in a way that they didn't put him on IR immediately before 53-man roster cut. So they did it in a way to where he basically took up a 53-man roster spot. So that made us lose a spot on the roster to do it. That's how much they believe in him coming back healthy. Because if you keep him on a 53-man roster and put him on IR after the 53-man roster cuts, then that means that he's not forced to miss the entire season. He's just on temporary IR. They expect him to come back at some point in his rookie season, hopefully sooner rather than later. We'll see. But either way, at worst case scenario, Jamin Davis is not that bad at off-ball linebacker to where you just can't play him there. I mean, I'm just not too sure how much I trust Dominique Hampton and Mykal Walker right now at linebacker. I would consider, in my opinion, Jamin Davis to be right behind Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu, but that's just me. I'm pretty high on Jamin Davis as an off-ball linebacker. I don't think he's anywhere near Frankie Louvu or Bobby Wagner, and I projected Jordan McGee to be better than Jamin Davis when healthy, even as a rookie. But outside of that, I think Jamin Davis is your best linebacker. Outside of those top three, I think Dominique Hampton and Mykal Walker-wise, I do trust Jamin Davis a little bit more. I'm not going to lie. Now, speaking linebackers, I guess we already talked about them. Yeah, again, Dante Fowler, I think that's just weird where he is. I just go ahead and push him up there with the defensive line. I have our off-ball linebackers, inside linebackers, whatever you want to consider them. Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu, Dominique Hampton, who again is making the transition from free safety in college, strong safety at times, then a box safety, especially early on in this offseason, to now pure off-ball linebacker. That is a huge transition. There are going to be some growing pains there. You saw some flashes in the preseason, but you're expecting growing pains from a guy that I know he's a big safety. He's kind of built like a Jeremy Chin or a Tyler Owens, but the fact that he's going from free safety just last year, just a few months ago, to off-ball linebacker at the NFL level, you are expecting serious growing pains. So I don't really consider him very playable yet. I think Mykal Walker, if anything, would play over him in games. But we'll see how that goes. I mean, maybe they're going to use Dante Fowler as an off-ball linebacker in packages. The fact that they have him as the same position as Frankie Louvu and Dominique Hampton, we'll see. Now moving on to the corners, obviously Benjamin St. Juste and Emmanuel Forbes are your starting corners. Interesting. Over Michael Davis. Very interesting. But Mike Sainristil is clearly your starting slot corner with Noah Igbinoghene. Like I said, the only reason I had Noah Igbinoghene making the team is because he is your backup slot corner. I felt like Tariq Castro-Fields may be a better corner overall, but Tariq Castro-Fields is an outside corner, and they just chose to only go with 3 outside corners on the entire roster right now. Benjamin St-Juste, Michael Davis, Emmanuel Forbes, that's it. But Noah Igbinoghene is your backup slot corner. But at the same time, it's tricky because when there are 3 safeties on the field, Percy Butler is that next safety, which has me very confused as to why he's that far back on the depth chart behind Jeremy Reaves and Derek Forrest. I'm shocked by that. I think Percy Butler, he didn't even play in the last preseason game. So that's another reason why I think this depth chart is they just put it together. They didn't really care about who's actually above who or whatever like that. So we may not need to read into this too much, but you know me, I'm Rico of Street Scores. We got to do a super deep dive, even if we shouldn't. But Percy Butler is clearly the guy that is the third safety. Like, if we ever have 3 safeties on the field at the same time, it's Jeremy Chinn, Quan Martin, Percy Butler. Ignore Derek Forrest and Jeremy Reaves being above him on the depth chart. That is a lie. Even just from training camp, or even just most recently, the preseason game. Percy Butler, Jeremy Chinn, and Quan Martin were your 3 safeties that didn't even play in that preseason game against the Patriots. So that let us know, even before that Patriots preseason game, that Percy Butler was making his final 3-man roster. Derek Forrest, Jeremy Reaves, and my boy Tyler Owens had to go out there and prove themselves in that final preseason game. I don't know why they have Percy Butler so far in the depth chart, but either way, Percy Butler is one of those starting 3 safeties. But again, back to my first point, is that, like, okay, so you have those are your 3 safeties on the field. That's a situation. Mike Sainristil is your starting slot corner. That's a situation where I think he should play at least 70% of snaps. He only steps off the field if he's tired. That's it. Even if it's a 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 goal line, even though he's small, I want him on that field. That's how great of a player he is. He showed you his run stop ability, his edge setting, his block shedding against especially receivers and tight ends in the preseason games. These just a couple of weeks ago, when the very little bit that he did play, because he's a certified starter. So you can play him any snap, any situation, any scenario. But at the same time, though, we've been hearing about Mike Sainristil potentially moving to outside corner. They've been using him like that in the training camp practices recently. Joe Witt Jr. even acknowledged it out loud. Maybe Mike Sainristil is one of your starting outside corners over Benjamin St-Juste or Emmanuel Forbes. Maybe depending on the situation. Because I love Mike Sainristil, but him being 5 foot something, like what, 5'10" or something like that, going against like a 6'6" Mike Evans is a little different. Even though he's shown you on tape that he can stop. I think it was like Cade, the Cade tight end from Ohio State. He did a great job of defending him in the red zone and got his hand on the ball to bat it away. So he's shown you that he can lock up bigger receiver targets and things like that, even like a tight end. But I'm just not sure if we can trust him with that consistently, especially like you send Mike Evans on the slant. Like, what can you really do? But Mike Sainristil, they're apparently trying to work him as an outside corner, which brings my point back to Noah Igbinoghene. If Mike Sainristil is outside corner, maybe Noah Igbinoghene steps in as your starting, well, not your starting slot, but he'll play slot for you if Mike Sainristil is an outside corner. Maybe sometimes we'll see. But either way, Mike Sainristil, out of anybody in that list that says cornerback, he's already the best guy already. Even as a 2nd-round rookie, he's already our best guy. I remember a Dolphins reporter after the joint practice said that was the best Tyreek Hill has been covered all summer, and that came from Mike Sainristil covering him. And he did a great job of like not falling for any reverses and fakes. He was very disciplined. So against the run, against the pass, this guy's very solid already as a rookie. He's only getting better. I'm super excited. So that's our best corner. Don't say slot corner. Don't say outside, anything. That's our best corner already. And a lot of Commanders beat reporters and media members have already confirmed that as well. They completely agree. Your starting safeties are obviously Jeremy Chinn, your starting strong safety, Quan Martin, your starting free safety. Behind them, Percy Butler is your backup free safety, but he can also play in the slot as well. You might be able to even squeeze him in there behind Mike Sainristil, in front of Noah Igbinoghene, I would say, as far as slot corner goes. But then you have Derek Forrest as, your backup strong safety, essentially, just because of his build. But he prefers to play free safety, like his 2022 season where he was flashing, he was getting all those interceptions. That was him at free safety. Even though he's built like a box safety, strong safety type of guy, he's just always made it be known that he prefers to play free safety. So technically, he would want to be behind Quan Martin on this depth chart. But Dan Quinn are looking at him like, you too big to do that, man. You need to be a strong safety, point blank period. Step up and make a play in the run game. Well, I don't care how much you want to play free free safety. You are too big to be doing that. And then Jeremy Reeves, I guess I think he's easily behind Percy Butler. If I had to trust anybody to go out there and play free safety for us on Sundays, it's Percy Butler over Jeremy Reeves. I love Jeremy Reeves on special teams, but he is behind Percy Butler on this depth chart, in my opinion, as far as the defense goes, playing free safety on Sundays for the defense, not special teams. And then I'm just really happy that my boy Tyler Owens made the team. I feel like right now he's a strong special teams contributor purely. That's it. But I'm telling you, man, he's growing. He's getting better. I think he led our training camp in interceptions with 2. I mean, I didn't hear about anybody else getting 2 interceptions this training camp. Hey, man, watch out for Tyler Owens. He's been making plays preseason, training camp practices, everything, man. So I'm super excited about his potential. He has Pro Bowl, All-Pro potential just based on his talent. He's not there yet at all right now. But for now, until he grows into that guy, until he develops into that guy, he will be a strong special teams guy. Remember that opening snap against the Patriots, that very first initial kickoff to start that preseason game, Tyler Owens and Jeremy Reeves combined for a tackle that had the returner up in the air for a second. Like, they laid a big hit on him. So I love those 2 guys special teams wise. I'm not sure if Percy Butler is a good special teams player, but he's better than the guys that are around him on his depth chart. Derek Forrest, Jeremy Reeves, Tyler Owens. I trust Percy Butler out of that group of 4 easily the most to play on Sundays for us at safety. But the other guys are definitely better special teamers than him. Maybe that's why they have those 3 guys over Percy Butler on the depth chart. I'm guessing. That's the only reason I can see it. Then you're starting punt returner Tressway, of course. Starting kicker, seems like K. York already solidified that job. When we traded for him, it was open competition still. They were like, hey, man, we're going to potentially bring in some competition for you. But then he went and made all his kicks. Now, granted, none of them were even for 40 yards or longer in that preseason game against the Patriots. But he made every single kick, every PAT, all of them 30-something yards within. But I guess that was enough, and maybe they've seen enough in practice to know that he's good to go. I think he made I think his career long is a 58-yarder, so it's not like he doesn't have the leg. It was more so about consistency. He showed consistency in that Patriots preseason game. So I'm guessing it looks like they're not bringing competition in for him, but again, when we initially traded a 7th-round pick for him, the message was that we're trading a pick for him, but we're still looking at other options to see that we could bring in some competition and see, you know, who's the best man made a best man win type of situation. But I guess he kicked his way into where they didn't even feel the need to bring another guy in. Then Tyler Ott is your Pro Bowl long snapper. We're going from one of the worst long snappers in NFL history in Cameron Cheeseman to a Pro Bowl long snapper in Tyler Ott. So that's a big improvement there. Then, like I said earlier, I didn't even look at the bottom of this yet, but Byron Pringle is one of your starting kick returners, and Jamison Crowder is easily your 1 starting punt returner. But right behind both of those guys, as you can see, is Olamide Zaccheaus on that depth chart. Now you have 2 kick returners and 1 punt returner. So Olamide Zaccheaus is one of your starting kick returners along with Byron Pringle. And then Jamison Crowder is your 1 starting punt returner, but Olamide Zaccheaus is your backup punt returner if anything were to happen to Jamison Crowder. So there you go. That's the roster right there. I'm really excited, man. Let's get it. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in the video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Let me know how you feel about this initial depth chart. Do you feel like I'm reading too much into it? Do you feel like they just kind of put this together and threw it out there? Most notably for names like Percy Butler being at the bottom of the depth chart, De'Ami Brown not being one of your starting wide receivers while Luke McCaffrey is. How do you feel about this depth chart right now? Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my points. Do you agree or disagree with any of the depth chart positions that any of these players have? Again, most notably Percy Butler being at the bottom of the depth chart for the safeties is wild to me because I completely disagree right now, but we'll see. So let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video, of course, and please do not leave this video without leaving a like. And of course, I'm gonna keep y'all updated on everything going on with the Commanders. This video came out of nowhere. I was planning on working on another video, and then John Com just randomly tweeted this out, so I had to make sure I recorded this before I ended up busy today. So I really appreciate y'all. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.